So now we're going to go into some of the more technical factors of what's involved in the heliocentric chart. But one of the things I want to say, when you're working with a heliocentric chart, we're used to think, oh, Pluto's hitting Mars, or Pluto's squaring this, or Pluto's hitting this, adding the energy. And it doesn't work that way heliocentrically. Heliocentric, the sun affects the Mercury, and then Mercury puts its energy out to whatever planet it aspects or conjuncts. The sun radiates and lights up your Venus, depending on how much it can radiate or how much rays you have. It then goes and touches any of the further outer planets that don't have quite as much light. They have a vaster sphere, but it's thinner, so that message comes out. So each planet is affecting the outer planets. The outer planets, Pluto, that little dot out there isn't doing anything to Earth. Earth is hopefully shedding some light that's helping to get through the reality checks of Pluto. It turns it around inside out, and you can't imagine what it is. It's not something you can just, it's not just an intellectual exercise. Oh, my Mercury's in Scorpio, so in my heliocentric Mercury's in Capricorn. Yeah, we start seeing it like that, but really, the function of Mercury when it's lit up by the sun or by the moment or by love or by God, it's a totally different thing. You can even say that's the chart that you're going to die into. You finish with all the mountain monkey business of the world, and when you're ready to let go of your body, boom, you're into the sun. The Zoroastrians used to think we're born, we live, and when we die, our soul returns from our heart through the veins of the sun back to the sun, and we're reborn as sunlight wherever we go. A beautiful meditation. So, okay, first thing we deal with in heliocentric astrology is the nodes. And it's the nodes of every planet, not that we just use the nodes of the moon. So here, if you had to say that's Earth on the parallel, there's the nodes. It's an old drawing, but I like it. So, but when the planet's coming around this way, it's on the orbital plane of Earth. When it's here, it's at the maximum point north. When it's here, it's back on the equatorial plane, but it's going south. When it's here, it's at the southernmost point south. So if you're in the southern hemisphere, the south node is the positive node for you, because it's just coming over you. And if you're in the northern hemisphere, it tells you when it's coming up to be above overhead where you can see it in the northern hemisphere. So, okay. So this is just another drawing of nodes. In this case, the Earth would be in the center, and it's showing another planet coming around, coming up to the maximum point. And this shows there's 8 points. There's the highest point, there's the nodes, there's the highest and lowest point, and there's the midpoints. So I like the 8 points, but what happens, you start looking at something, you start looking at Mercury, or look at something at heliocentric chart, and you get pulled in, and you're discovering, and you're getting all these pieces of facts, and you don't know what to make out of it. You're just realizing there's a lot of texture here to see what's happening. Okay, so the next factor is the apsides, the line of the aphelion and perihelion, when you're closest or furthest away from the sun. Every planet's going to have a point where it's closest to the sun, and when it's furthest away from the sun. Really, there's the mathematics and music. Circles are perfect circles. In life and in nature, they're ellipses. So to a pure mathematician, or someone who's divinely into music, life is sinful and corrupt because it's going into ellipses. It's not perfect circles. The timing's warping. Something's happening here. It's changing it. So, but this is when they calculate this, they get the second orbit because the second center. There's 2 centers to an ellipse. But really, we have the closest point, and then we have the furthest point away, and they have the midpoints, and the midpoints and the quarter points. So this is how I draw it on a circle. This is I remember it by saying the aphelion is apart. It's the furthest one. The perihelion is the closest, when it's closest. So when a planet's at its perihelion, it's moving faster than any other time in its orbit. It's going through each degree faster. When it's out here at the perihelion, it's going through the degrees out in space more, and it's taking a lot more time to go through those degrees. It's slowing down. We're measuring things by degrees. But the phenomena going through degrees is different textures. It's different. So, okay. You might want to take a picture. This is just a list of, now this is taken from Phil Sedgwick's book, Sun in the Center. He has a big book on heliocentric astrology. It's a nice book. There's a few people who wrote a lot on heliocentric. Michael Erlewine has a bunch of books. But they tend to go to the nodes and the apsides, and they leave out the equator. They leave out the angle of the planet, or they leave out the seasons. They just interpret the aspects in the planet positions without signs. In terms of heliocentric, I found it's not so much like that. So, but this gives you the north node of each planet, and it throws in Chiron, Makemake, Eris, and Sedna. Okay, there's bigger lists that have more things in it. Then it gives you the perihelion degree. So Earth doesn't have a north node because that's based on the ecliptic. Everything's going to be based against it. But the perihelion's at 14 degrees Cancer. Okay, now that's in a geocentric chart. We're at the closest. We're closest in Capricorn and furthest away in Cancer. I think that's how it works. Okay, so anyways, these tables are available. Philip's website. I've known Philip for 50 years, and so this is the first chart I've done. I did make the heliocentric charts. I use different symbols for the zodiac. Don't worry about it. It was just to distinguish. But each one, there's the sun in the center. That bar is the equator of the sun. Then you have Mercury going around it. On the heliocentric chart, you don't have symbols. You have to count and remember where they are in their orbits. So you'll see. So it's done so there's a bit more space between Venus and Earth, and a bit of space between Venus and Mars. So Earth stands out, and it's got the circles on it for the equinoxes and solstices. And then and then there's a space. Then the Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn join together. There's a bit more space, and then Uranus, Pluto. So they're not all proportionally there. They're angularly there with a grid, so you can see them. So you can see them without too much difficulty. And on this chart, there's just the north nodes, and you'll notice for Earth, the north nodes all come from the middle of Taurus up to the middle of Leo. That's where all the north nodes are in that area. All the south nodes are on the other side. Now, the center points here are I just drew it in because I was going to make this chart you'll see some of these charts, for the equinoxes and solstices. This is Earth at the equinoxes and solstices. So when it's the summer solstice, when the summer solstice, the sun will be in Gemini, but the Earth will be in Sag Capricorn. The winter solstice, it's marked that way. So they're drawn in by two solid lines, two broken lines, solid and a broken, or broken and solid. So they're just drawn in like that. So they're put on without the circles. There's the summer solstice point. You'll see these points around for each of the orbits. So there's a season for each planet. I mean, if we're going to send a spaceship out to Mars, and it's going to take a year or so to get there, we've got to watch the weather when we're going to send it off. But if you haven't watched the weather, and you're going to try and touch down in the middle of winter, that's not necessarily the smartest thing to do. This is stuff that has to be known to be able to do it. But really, you could start doing. There's really a zodiac for each orbit. Each planetary orbit has its own zodiac, its own angular, its own seasons. So we watch how Uranus is in a certain sign, but we're not watching how Uranus is in a certain season in its own nature.
The little indentations and outdentations.
That's a perihelion and the aphelion.
Okay.
The closest
to
to furthest. So you can see where Neptune's furthest out point is Pluto's closest in point at 15 Scorpio. So that there's 2 cycles of Pluto for 3 cycles of Neptune. And every 500 years, Pluto hits this and Neptune's close enough, and Pluto becomes inside the orbit of Neptune for 22 years.
In Scorpio.
And in Scorpio, at least for thousands and thousands of years. It slowly progresses. But so for 22 years, Neptune's the outermost planet in the solar system, and Pluto isn't. And that was from 1988 to 2000. Okay, so you get huge things to think about. You can't just settle on in a couple of sentences. They bug you and they stay with you. So okay, now the next concept. This is the main concept that I think is really personally useful. You have the sun which is the soul and the sense of oneness. We have our earth, which is our sense of separateness and separateness. And there's a space between. I call it the conflict zone. But the space between isn't just a linear space between the sun and the earth. It's the whole, you spread it right out. It goes right out to the universe. So any planet in that conflict zone is going to be between the sun and the earth, and there's a bit of conflict. Really, it's no conflict. The sun wins. Okay, the soul wins. It's not a conflict. But from our separative viewpoint, it is a conflict. Okay, now, so this fight between separatism, the earth, my, me, mine, this, or us, or oneness. Wow, it's a beautiful poem. If you have the moon, so really, on this drawing, you can see how Mercury, when it's between the earth and the sun, it's in the conflict zone. So Mercury retrograde is in the conflict zone. But really, not just the retrograde, it's from when it goes square. As it comes square and in, it becomes, as it hits the square and comes to the conjunction, it goes back to the square. On the one side, it's in the conflict zone. The moon, half the time, is in the conflict zone. The new moon half. So if you want to find the new moon half, you just look at the moon aspect to the sun. If it's less than a square, less than the exact square, it's in the conflict zone in your natal chart. In the sun, if you're looking from the sun, if you're looking from the earth heliocentrically, you're going to have, if Mercury or Venus is a square or less, 90 degrees or less, it's in the conflict zone. If it's more than 90 degrees, it's on the other side of the sun. It's not. It's aligned to the sun. It will work through the sun, through the oneness, more than through the separateness. Now the outer planets, they're moving around through here, and it's not so clear. You can see easily how the moon and Mercury and Venus fit into these areas. But with Mars, where an outer circle goes in, and you have to use both charts. If you're looking in the heliocentric chart, you look to see when the Earth squares Mars, and when it squares Mars, and if it's becoming less than the square, it's on the side of the sun. It's in the conflict zone. But it only is in the conflict zone until it passes. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. Thank you. So the Mercury and Venus, you can see where they are. The moon, you can see how it fits in very easily into this conflict zone. But when Mars is going around here, it's only in it for a time. And to determine that time, you can see from the Earth, if you look at your natal chart, you'll see if the sun squares Mars, if it's less than the square, it's still in the conflict zone. If it's more than a square, it's past the conflict zone, it's on the other side, close to the sun. So that's not enough. When does it enter the conflict zone? You have to see when this heliocentrically, when the Earth squares Mars, if it's less than the square.
Would that conflict zone be around where the stations are from our perspective?
No. The stations are always in it. The stations are always going to be in the conflict zone. But it starts from the square, not from when it goes stationary, direct, or retrograde. The stationary, direct, or retrograde starts at about 120 degrees.
Geocentric square or heliocentric square?
No, it doesn't, like, if you're looking from the geocentric chart, you see the Mercury retrograde, you know it's in the conflict zone. And a little bit before and a little bit after, till the square. Mercury doesn't square, so you can't see that side. From the heliocentric chart, you'll see the square to the, you see, like with Mars and the planets, they won't square. Like Mercury and Venus go around completely around the chart here. So this is, we're going to go more into, we'll see more pictures of this, but this is the one that you have to reflect on. It's been a meditation for me for 40 years now. You know, it's just, and it's still a puzzle. But I'm beginning to see more clearly how the aspects fit into it, especially the Mars. If it's less than, heliocentric Mars is less than square the Earth, it's going to be on this side. And if the geocentric Mars is less than square the Sun, it's going to be on the inside. So between those two dates, you have the conflict zone for Mars or for any of the other planets.
Between the geocentric and the heliocentric
Yeah, squares.
Okay.
It's in that period that they would be in the conflict zone. No simpler way to find it. So I'm not going to stay here, but I just...
And that would go for any of the planets?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
That's as simple a way as I can explain it. So you can see the waxing and waning. Of course, when the moon's waning, it comes from the full moon of maximum separateness, reflecting to us. But when it goes into the dark half of the moon, it's waning, it goes back towards into the conflict zone. Really, we call it conflict zone. Really, it's going back to God, back to the soul, back to the oneness. It's not really a conflict. It's let me be here. Don't let me go back to the earth. Don't make me go back. So after the new moon, it's being sent back. Oh, gee, no fair. I just want to stay here. No, you got work to do. You got to reflect the light back to the earth so other people can see it. So we have lots of different memories. And how many of our memories remember God, or remember spirit, or remember soul, or remember everyone loves? How many of our memories go there? When they do, you have a healing memory.